Hi, I'm Marissa Pendlebury and welcome back to the Nourishing Routes channel, where I show you how to love food, enjoy your body and become your authentic self after and during recovery from an eating disorder. Now in this week's video I want to talk about how we can learn about what recovery means and how we can surpass society's standard definitions of recovery, and specifically how we can continue to recover despite being classified as a healthy weight, whether you've got your period back or not, and also whether a medical professional classifies you as physically recovered. Now this topic is really important to me, and I feel many others, because I think that so many of us put the reins on recovery and say stop just because we've got to a so-called healthy weight, or other people see us as not physically emaciated or in need of any significant physical nutritional rehabilitation. But apart from the fact that eating disorders come in all different shapes and sizes, seeing recovery as simply about weight and something that we can physically see is so meaningless. And although weight gain and restoring periods and things like that are essential to recovery, there's also a lot of things that we can't see that are really important. And there's physical things we can't see, and also there's social and psychological things that we cannot see. Now I'll be talking about these in the video right now, but I'd also just like to say that recovery is different for absolutely everybody, and just because you might have reached a healthy weight or have restored your periods, by no means that you're in a right position to stop. Because often, even when you do get to a healthy weight, there's still a lot of work to do. And this is something that definitely happened to me. I'd also like to say here that in recovery, there can be a large focus on restoring things that we've lost, whether that's weight or periods or hormone balance or whatever. However, there seems to be less of a focus on what we can rebuild and also gain after recovery. And by that I mean, how can we not just focus on things that we lose? How can we focus on gaining the life back that we lost and making new things and a new life for ourselves? I feel personally that when you've reached a physically healthy weight, medically there seems to be this syndrome of, okay, you're out on your own and you'll be absolutely fine. But what we do forget is that person's probably not only lost weight, but they've also, in the process of suffering from an eating disorder, also lost friendships, suffered in terms of their relationships with partners. They might have also lost the ability to socialise well. And maybe they've just lacked the ability to just be creatively expressing themselves into the world in a way that feels great for them. Because let's face it, most eating disorders suppress time for life, they suppress energy for life, and ultimately they suppress us from being able to consciously look at what we really want to do in the world. And I'm not saying that everyone needs this massive purpose in life to be Nelson Mandela, but what we do need is a sense of belonging and also a sense of meaning, that we feel connected to society in some way. And one of the biggest robberies that eating disorders do is take that right away from us, because often it makes us feel disconnected from society, as though we don't belong. It's like we get classified as this black sheep in the family, but also the world in general, because the way an eating disorder functions is very socially isolating, especially when you need to engage in behaviours that are seen as weird, or involves cutting yourself off from going out for meals and snacks and other things that other people do that are really important to forming bonds, relationships and connecting with culture. We also need to remember that even when we've gained to this so-called healthy weight, and I'll keep doing this because no one really knows what a healthy weight is for you other than your body, is that there may be still a way for you to go. And maybe it's not in terms of physically putting on weight, but there may be bone mass that you still need to restore, things that you cannot see. Hormones might need to still rebalance themselves. And maybe inside, nutritionally, there is still a deficit that needs to be balanced out again and restored to its optimal level. And we may be able to find this out in a blood test, but to be quite honest, our nutritional science information as it stands is still quite limited. And even if you do have a blood test and things come back as A-OK and fine, your body may think differently because ultimately it knows best. And even though we have certain standards about what certain nutrient levels are in the body or hormones are in the body optimally, on average, your body might be completely different and it might need more of a particular nutrient than what is given by society. And the same thing goes for calorie and energy intake as well. So even though you might be consuming the whole 2,000 calories a day for a woman and maybe at a healthy weight, your body at this moment in time may need more because your optimal functioning body may be at a higher weight or need a higher level of energy in order to cope with your own unique energy and nutritional needs. Now this can be quite hard to grapple because again it's something we cannot see all the time and it's something we cannot measure, and equally recovery in its fullest form is something we can't measure with a yardstick or a nutritional tool or even a scale for that matter. And in the circumstance that I'm talking about and what real recovery is for me and what I feel is my true definition of recovery is gaining capacity to live more compassionately, not only in terms of how we think about ourselves and our judgments towards food and body, but also giving ourselves full permission to live without restriction, live creatively and feel like we can engage in activities just for the pure object of fun and enjoyment. And I think that the eating disorder robs so many people of that. It robs us of joy. It robs us of being able to just go out there in the world and really just take it by the balls and do everything we want to do. Because somewhere at the back of our minds we might be thinking, I don't know what I'd eat if I engage in that activity. What if that group of people don't eat at the same time as me? And all the food restrictions and regulations and time schedules and planning that goes into maintaining an eating disorder, even at a healthy weight, that can still ruin your life. And even if it's not on the scale of making you go back in inpatient treatment or be really nutritionally unstable, what it does is it still allows you to have a deficit of life. And for me, a deficit of life is what we should really be focusing on in full recovery, and even when you go past that range of being at a so-called healthy weight. So if I was to sum up my definition of recovery, I would say that not only do I want to restore my weight physically or my mental and physical health that can be measured either with a teal sheet or a weight measuring scale or whatever, what I also want to find out is how I feel about myself. Am I able to give myself permission and the validity to just accept myself as I am and go out into the world and still learn about things, make friendships, make relationships, and learn new things? And this kind of relates back to the point I mentioned earlier, that recovery is not just about rebuilding weight, but it's also about recreating things that might have not been there before your eating disorder existed. And by that I mean is that just because you've recovered doesn't mean you need to stop and just simply look at all the things you lost. We have to look at things that we were set to gain and create and make in the world. And I think we can really lose sight of that because we don't want just a restoration project. We almost need to build a whole new house altogether, or build an extension and do something that actually wasn't there before the eating disorder happened. Because I can guarantee that before your eating disorder, you still had a potential that lies beyond your current self as it is right now, regardless of what weight you are. So you could restore your weight and restore yourself optimally physically well, but if you're not fulfilling your true creativity in the world or doing your duty as a human being or what you feel is right for you, then in some way you still have a deficit of life. And maybe that's something as simple as learning something at school or college that you always wanted to, making friends in a certain area of the world, or travelling to parts of the world that you've never been to out of fear that it may be out of sync with your eating routine or exercise routine. And also linked to exercise, it's also about finding ways to move your body in ways that aren't still limited around times, restrictions, burning off calories. And as you can see in the world, there's lots of people who are at a healthy weight but still have a very damaging and psychologically impairing relationship with exercise and food. And I can hand on heart say that I probably have a healthy relationship with food now than a lot of my friends and family, because even though they've never had an eating disorder, they still have a lot of disordered thoughts and ways of thinking around food and exercise, such as certain foods are naughty or bad or good. They might punish themselves by going to the gym for a certain amount of time to burn off what they ate the night before. And I think society's mentality around food, at least for the most part, is quite negative, and it allows the general population to live in a deficit of life because a large proportion of their activities are dedicated to weight, food, nutrition, and thinking that it will lead to this happier life. And I think one of the greatest gifts that an eating disorder can give, if it ever gives us a gift, is just learning that life is so much more than that, and regardless of what weight you do get down to or how limited and healthy your eating routine is, that isn't where real happiness lies. And even if we did feel happy in that moment, in no way did that allow us to live life to the full, because in some way we were still restricted by food and exercise and routines and regimens and all that sort of stuff. So if I'm going to help you here and say how can you really look at recovery authentically, is to ask yourself, how can you start to not only regain the life you lost, but rebuild new things that go beyond past, like just your healthy weight, and things that just go past beyond having a healthy meal plan. Like, what is it that you really want to do in life that you weren't able to do with your eating disorder? And where does your deficit of life lie, and how can you fill that void with things that are meaningful for you? And you know, the answers to this question might be like 1,000,001, because there are so much things to do in the world. And again, your purpose in this world doesn't have to be to go and, you know, reinvent the wheel or do something amazing like Nelson Mandela or any other saint or worship person, but just to go and be you in your fullest self and carry out your duty as a human being to live kindly with yourself and others in a way that just feels fulfilling in the long run. And that also involves ups and downs as well, because recovery is also about feeling the wide range of emotions that we do have naturally as a human being, and not restricting our emotions through being able to rigidly control them through restriction and food control, because we know that's a numbing factor of a human emotion. Finally, in this video, I just want to say, are you suffering from a deficit of life and not just a deficit of calories and weight? And if you are, then there's certainly so much work that you can still be doing on yourself. And in a way, it kind of opens up a door to still feeling worthy of recovery. Yes, still keep going with your optimal meals and nutrition and pushing the boundaries of recovery so you can actually go out there and live life and not have these calorie restrictions or food restrictions or exercise restrictions, and just ultimately being able to say a full-hearted yes to life and moving on and living your best life in the way that feels most fulfilling to you. So if that video relates to you anyway, I'd really like if you could just like this video or subscribe to this channel. That would mean the world to me, because being able to connect with people like you makes me feel like my journey's been so worthwhile up until this point. And even just making simple videos like this, it gives me so much joy to do. And even though I haven't got millions of followers, and I never hope to have millions of followers, still to know that things like this are able to, you know, maybe get to the hearts of other people out there who've suffered like me or have gone through similar experience, it just gives me so much joy. So on that note, thanks for watching. If you want to find out more, you can visit my website at www.nourishingroutes.com, or just connect with me on Instagram, where I like to share fun pictures of chocolate eating, tea and cafe hunting, and just sharing my philosophy on recovery. So have a great week, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye.